If a single nuclear device were detonated 200 miles above the United States, every unprotected electronic device in the country could stop working permanently. An electromagnetic pulse is a burst of electromagnetic energy that induces massive, damaging electrical surges in any conductor wires, circuit boards, transformers within its range. There are three sources: a high-altitude nuclear detonation, the most devastating; a solar coronal mass ejection, entirely natural and historically documented; and non-nuclear directed energy weapons, smaller scale, already in use by militaries worldwide. The high-altitude nuclear electromagnetic pulse, known as HEMP, is detonated above the atmosphere. One weapon at 300 kilometers altitude can expose the entire continental United States to its pulse simultaneously. The United States Congressional EMP Commission, established by Congress and reporting to the House Armed Services Committee, concluded that a successful high-altitude electromagnetic pulse attack could be catastrophic to critical national infrastructure. In 1859, a massive solar storm struck Earth. Known as the Carrington Event, it remains the largest geomagnetic storm on record. Telegraph wires caught fire. Operators were shocked. The technology of the day was destroyed. Today's infrastructure is infinitely more complex. In July 2012, a Carrington-class solar superstorm erupted from the sun. Scientists later confirmed it narrowly missed Earth by 9 days. Had it struck, Lloyd's of London estimated the damage to the United States alone at $600 billion to $2.6 trillion. The United States EMP Commission and multiple intelligence assessments confirm that Russia, China, and North Korea all possess high-altitude nuclear electromagnetic pulse capability. North Korea's intercontinental ballistic missiles can already reach United States soil. In the first microsecond of a high-altitude electromagnetic pulse, three sequential energy components are released. The E1 pulse, fast and fierce, destroys semiconductors and microelectronics instantly. It is over before any protection system can respond. First to go, the power grid. Large transformers, the backbone of the grid, are both the most vulnerable and the hardest to replace. The United States has fewer than 200 of the largest transformers. Lead time to manufacture a replacement, 1 to 2 years. Modern vehicles, any car manufactured after roughly 1980 with electronic ignition and engine control modules, stop working. The United States EMP Commission tested vehicles under simulated conditions. Most modern cars stalled or experienced significant electronic malfunction. Cell towers offline, the internet down, satellite communications disrupted, landlines dependent on powered switching dead. Your smartphone becomes a brick. In a high-altitude electromagnetic pulse event, the only reliable communication is non-electronic, specifically analog radio. Water treatment and pumping systems run on electricity. Within hours of an electromagnetic pulse, municipal water pressure fails. Refrigeration for food and medication stops. Fuel pumps at every gas station in the affected area cease to function. Hospital emergency generators are typically designed to run for 72 hours. After that, without resupply, they stop. Electronic medical devices, ventilators, monitors, insulin pumps go offline. The EMP Commission warned that medical system failure could be one of the highest casualty consequences. Within 1 hour, grid fails. Within 24 hours, water stops. Within 72 hours, hospital generators begin failing. Within 1 week, food supply chains collapse. The entire modern infrastructure of an affected region begins unwinding in a single week. This is the critical distinction most people miss. A high-altitude electromagnetic pulse detonated above the atmosphere produces almost no blast, no heat, and no immediate radiation at ground level. It is not a nuclear attack on a city. It is an attack on electronics, and through electronics, on everything. The solar version of this threat is not theoretical. It is historical. The Carrington Event of 1859, the Quebec blackout of 1989, and the near miss of 2012 all demonstrate that a Carrington-class solar storm is an inevitable event. The only question is timing. The solar electromagnetic pulse differs from a nuclear one in one critical way: warning time. A coronal mass ejection typically takes 1 to 3 days to reach Earth after leaving the sun. A nuclear electromagnetic pulse arrives with zero warning in the time it takes to read this sentence. What actually survives? Older vehicles pre-1980 with no electronic control modules, simple electrical devices with no semiconductors, electronics stored in properly constructed Faraday cages at the time of the pulse, and non-electronic tools, mechanical equipment, and human knowledge. A Faraday cage is a conductive enclosure that intercepts electromagnetic energy and routes it around the outside, preventing it from reaching the electronics inside. It is the primary and most effective protection method for individual electronic devices. You do not need specialist equipment. A galvanized steel garbage can with a tight-fitting lid, lined inside with cardboard or foam to prevent direct contact between the metal and your electronics, functions as an effective Faraday cage. The lining prevents charge transfer to the devices inside. Priority items for Faraday protection: a hand crank or battery radio capable of receiving emergency broadcasts, a battery bank, a backup phone with emergency contacts and offline maps stored, spare batteries, a portable solar charger, a basic radio transceiver for local communication. For individual devices, military specification electromagnetic pulse bags are a practical, affordable alternative to a full metal cage. These conductive bags block electromagnetic energy from reaching the device inside. They are available commercially and cost between $10 and $50 per bag. Water is the first critical system to fail after an electromagnetic pulse. The protocol: store your minimum 2-week water supply before the event. Maintain a gravity-fed or manual water filtration system that requires no electrical power. Know the location of non-powered water sources near your home. The supply chain for replenishment will not function for an extended period. Every electronic payment system fails simultaneously. Every card terminal, every automated teller machine, every digital banking platform. Physical cash is the only functional medium of exchange in the immediate aftermath. The $300 cash reserve from your core kit becomes your entire accessible financial resource. For anyone dependent on powered medical devices, insulin-requiring refrigeration, electrically powered home medical equipment, or medications requiring consistent temperature, an electromagnetic pulse event is a medical emergency from the first hour. The 30-day medication surplus from your core kit is the starting point, not the solution. When infrastructure fails simultaneously across a region, civil order becomes fragile. Historical documented blackout events show elevated rates of crime and civil disruption within the first 48 to 72 hours. Community preparation and neighborhood mutual aid are your most effective security tool. Amateur radio, commonly called ham radio, operates independently of the internet, cell networks, and powered infrastructure. A battery-powered ham radio transceiver functions after an electromagnetic pulse. It is how emergency managers, communities, and individuals communicate when every other system is down. Let's now build the electromagnetic pulse preparedness additions to your core kit. These are 7 targeted additions that address the specific failure modes of an electromagnetic pulse event, the scenarios your standard kit does not cover. Addition 1. A galvanized steel container, either a purpose-built Faraday cage or a galvanized steel garbage can with a tight lid lined with cardboard or foam. This is the single most important electromagnetic pulse addition. It protects every electronic device you store inside it. Addition 2. A hand crank AM/FM Hellbetter radio stored inside your Faraday container. After an electromagnetic pulse, this is your only link to official emergency broadcasts. Store it charged, with the working hand crank mechanism confirmed. This is not a backup, it is primary communications. Addition 3. A dedicated backup phone stored in your Faraday container, loaded with offline maps for your region, digital copies of your emergency documents, and a list of contacts. When cell networks are down, offline maps are the difference between knowing where you are and not. Addition 4. A high-capacity battery bank, minimum 20,000 milliamp hours, and a portable solar panel, both stored in your Faraday container. After an electromagnetic pulse, solar charging from a protected panel and bank is how you keep your protected devices running indefinitely. Addition 5. A non-electric cooking method. A propane camp stove with spare canisters is the most practical. A wood-burning rocket stove requires no fuel storage. A solar cooker requires no consumables. Choose based on your living situation. Without this, cooking stops the moment the grid fails. Addition 6. A set of manual, non-electronic tools. A hand-cranked can opener, not electric. A mechanical watch. Paper maps of your local area and region. Written contact information. Manual tools for basic repair. In an electromagnetic pulse scenario, any task that depended on electronics must be performable without them. Addition 7. Extended fuel and water reserves. In an electromagnetic pulse scenario, fuel supply chains stop. Water pumping stops. Store more than your standard kit minimum. For fuel, stabilize petrol in sealed containers. For water, your 2-week minimum as a starting point, not an endpoint. The complete electromagnetic pulse additions. A Faraday container, a hand crank radio, a backup phone with offline maps, a battery bank with solar charger, non-electric cooking, manual tools, and extended water and fuel reserves. Total additional investment, under $200 for most households. This is the most common confusion in this topic. A widespread electromagnetic pulse destroys the equipment used to make the repairs. Recovery is not days, it is potentially years. The Congressional EMP Commission estimated the cost to harden the United States power grid against an electromagnetic pulse at between $2 and $20 billion. The United States has not done this. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has identified electromagnetic pulse protection as a priority, but hardening remains incomplete. In 2019, President Trump signed Executive Order 13,865 directing federal agencies to coordinate national resilience to electromagnetic pulses. This order formally acknowledged the electromagnetic pulse threat as a national security priority. It did not solve the problem. The Golden Dome Missile Defense Initiative announced in 2025 would, if fully implemented, provide the United States with the ability to intercept incoming ballistic missiles, including those used to deliver a high-altitude electromagnetic pulse. Experts note it represents a significant step, but current deployment timelines mean the vulnerability remains. Individual preparedness multiplies when it becomes community preparedness. One household with a hand crank radio is an information point for the neighborhood. One household with medical training becomes a care point. One household with mechanical tools becomes a repair resource. Coordination is the most powerful preparedness tool. An electromagnetic pulse event effectively reverts affected regions to a pre-digital operational state. Skills that were commonplace 50 years ago become critical: navigation by paper map, manual food preservation, mechanical repair, basic medical first aid, and hand tool carpentry. These are learnable. They cost nothing but time. Unlike a nuclear electromagnetic pulse, a solar coronal mass ejection gives warning. NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center monitors solar activity continuously. A major keen can give 12 to 72 hours of warning before impact. This is the window to protect your electronics and prepare. 3 widespread misconceptions. 1. All cars stop working. False. Older, simpler vehicles may continue to function. 2. Turning off electronics protects them. False. Only physical Faraday shielding reliably protects. 3. An electromagnetic pulse is the same as a power outage. False. The equipment used to restore a power outage also fails. This is not a fringe theory. Multiple foreign military doctrines documented in congressional testimony and intelligence assessments include high-altitude electromagnetic pulse as a first strike option. China's doctrine of total information warfare explicitly incorporates electromagnetic pulse as part of combined cyber and nuclear operations. The sun operates on an 11-year magnetic cycle. The current solar maximum, the period of highest solar activity, began in late 2023 and continues through 2025 and into 2026. We are currently in the highest risk window for a major solar electromagnetic event in over a decade. The case for electromagnetic pulse preparedness is identical to the case for any other preparedness. The cost of preparation is small and bounded. The cost of being unprepared in this scenario is unbounded. A Faraday container, a hand crank radio, and offline maps cost under $100 and 30 minutes to assemble. A cyber attack on the grid can be isolated, patched, and reversed using functioning computers and communication systems. An electromagnetic pulse removes the tools needed to respond. There is no patch for a destroyed transformer. There is no remote fix for a circuit board that no longer exists. Your personal electromagnetic pulse action plan does not require perfection. It requires starting. This week, buy a galvanized steel container. Next week, load it with a hand crank radio and a backup phone with offline maps. The week after, a battery bank and solar charger. Build progressively. Subscribe to 0 Hour if this briefing was useful. New briefings published every week, each one connecting a specific documented threat to a specific actionable protocol. The next briefing covers geopolitical flashpoints in 2026 and their direct domestic preparedness implications. 3 action steps before this briefing closes. Each one takes under 30 minutes and under $30. Together, they address the most critical preparedness gaps for an electromagnetic pulse event. Step 1. This week, buy a galvanized steel container with a tight lid. Place your hand crank radio, a spare phone, and a battery bank inside. Close the lid. You have just built a functional Faraday cage for under $30. That is your electromagnetic pulse kit foundation. Step 2. Download offline maps for your region, your state, and the routes between your home and your designated emergency contacts onto a spare phone. Store the phone in your Faraday container. If networks go down for any reason, electromagnetic pulse, storm, or grid failure, you know where you are. Step 3. This week, fill your water storage. For electromagnetic pulse specifically, this is more critical than in a standard emergency. Water will not be restored until grid infrastructure is rebuilt. Your stored water is not a backup. It is your entire supply for the duration. The electromagnetic pulse threat is real, documented by the United States government, and represents a scenario where standard recovery assumptions do not apply. You cannot wait for help that may not come for years. Your preparedness is your infrastructure. Build it now. This is 0 Hour. Prepare. Survive. Adapt. Next briefing publishes in 5 days.